WOC reader, and welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to sit down and have this quick discussion just because I'm seeing this come up a lot in the past couple of days and I have so many thoughts on this. So Robinne Lee's movie based off of her book, The Idea of You, recently released. So of course she's on the press tour and she did this interview, and the way they put the headline was very misleading to the interview. They said she couldn't sell her book with black characters, so she had to make them white, and that is not what happened. In reality, she wrote an interracial romance with like a black woman and a white man. She had trouble selling that book, so then she, by her own words, said she didn't want to deal with that, and she decided to write this white story. But since that misleading headline, I'm seeing so many people take it and run with it, not just on Twitter, but on other sites as well. And this idea that we as black authors should write the book with white characters to get on to then have success and be able to write the story we want to write. And I just want to push back on that because, first of all, who is the example of an author who was writing white, switched over to black, and is successful? You probably can't name one. And I can think of maybe like a handful of people who are doing that, but even then, like, what type of success are we trying to achieve? Because I can't think of anybody who did that and then went on to have a successful hit movie based off of their books, which is what people are trying to say here. Like, oh, well, Robinne Lee did it and she's the blueprint. I'm like, what did Robinne Lee do as the blueprint, though? She wrote this one white book. She got one movie partially because she's good friends with Gabrielle Union, because she's an actress herself. They've worked together, and Gabrielle Union decided to support her friend's story with her production company and help her make it to the movie level. Most authors are not, they're not coming into the game with those kind of connections. Like, as we see, a lot of black stories are being optioned, but very few are being told, unless of course those connections are already there. And even so, when I think of black book to movie adaptations, so many of the ones I think of were just black stories. We have authors like Brenda Jackson, who is very underrated in the romance community. I feel like her name does not come up enough, but she was the first black romance author to hit the New York Times bestseller list. She's had a couple of bestsellers. She has had a few of her books turned into movies, and she has had such longevity in her career. I think of Terry McAn, who is a successful author who had a few book adaptations, and she actually took her career kind of almost into her own hands. Like, she did not feel her publisher was doing enough to promote her first book, so she went out into the community and promoted it herself. Like, and that's what a lot of authors had to do in like the 90s. They had to go out into the community and really make sure that word of mouth was being spread about their stories. Which word of mouth is still the most popular way to sell a book. And Robinne Lee's book came out in 2017, but it really didn't even pick up steam till 2020 pandemic. So I'm like, why is she being called the blueprint for success and playing the game when we have not seen a black book from her yet? She has not had a book 2 yet, but she's also only had the one hit so far. Like, what are you basing this off of? It's just crazy to me. I'm seeing people say, this is what you need to do to be a successful black author, when we have more examples of successful black authors who were true to themselves and their stories and believed in their work and made it happen despite the obstacles put in their way. And I know people get upset when we mention having to persevere and having to work harder. Unfortunately, we as black people have just always had to work harder especially in the US, to have success, because like so much of this industry is just not set up for us to succeed. We aren't the ones running it. So we're either expected to play the game, as people are suggesting, or we have to really step up and push back. And I just want to shout out all the Black authors who have continued to push back and said, no, I'm going to tell my story with Black characters the way that it's intended, despite how many no's they've received, despite how many suggestions they get to just change that character to white, just change that character to biracial, just tone them down a little bit, just remove the culture from the book, because people tell you behind the scenes so much, like, this is the easier way to get on, you just tweak your story and then you'll be able to write what you want to write. And I know so many people who have gotten that advice, but as much as people say tweak your story and you'll be able to write what you want to write, they're like, people are 6-7 books deep who are giving this advice and they haven't written the story that they really want to write yet. And we see so many times lately now where Black authors are writing these stories and turning around and saying, well, here's the real book of my heart, here's the story I actually wanted to read, and it just kind of alienates their audience. So let me know what your thoughts are on this in the comment section below, because I'm seeing a lot of discussion about this, and it just was just people going automatically, yes, we need to write white stories to get on. And I'm just like, Robinne Lee did not write a Black book and then have to switch it to white. That's the narrative being told, but that's not what actually happened. She wrote her interracial romance. She didn't want to have to deal with writing a story with a Black woman after it got rejected, and then she wrote this white story. And I had somebody trying to argue with me on Twitter that so many indie authors have to write white romance in order to rise on the list on Amazon. And then it was so many indie authors have to write white stories in order to avoid being evicted from their homes. And I'm like, first of all, if you know anything about publishing, indie or trad, you know it's a process. You're not going to just usually immediately able to churn out a good book that's going to make you a lot of money right away to avoid eviction. Even so, it's going to take a little bit for that money to hit. So I'm like, that was a choice to write the white story, but that doesn't mean that they were forced to do it. In my mind, when you say forced, they put a gun to your head and said, write that white book. They had your family tied up and held hostage, and they said, we will only set them free if you write that white book. That didn't happen. You weren't forced. You made a decision. And I think we need to hold people accountable for the decisions that they make. If you want to make a decision to make your characters white because you think that that'll give you a higher chance of getting your book out there, getting your book read, getting the level of fame that you think you're going to get from being a writer, by all means go ahead and do that, but own it. And I think we need to stop handling people with kid gloves like they're not making a choice. We all have choices. If you're facing eviction, you have choices. You can go get an extra part-time job, you can become a stripper. It doesn't automatically mean like, oh, I have to go write these white books, that's my only option. Like, let's talk about the choices that we have, and it really comes down to what you want to do for the money, because I'm aware everybody has a price. Like, if somebody comes dangling 6 figures in front of you, I'm sure you'll like agree to compromise on things, but how much are you willing to compromise? Let me know what your thoughts are about this discussion in the comment section below. If you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!